Welcome back to another episode of Sippy Cup Shenanigans. I'm Katherine Jensen.
And I'm Taylor Palmer, and today we're going to be talking about mom guilt and all the things that come with that, and some of the things that we do to help ourselves when we feel that, and how to kind of overcome it. If you can, sometimes it's kind of hard.
Yeah, sometimes you're stuck with it.
Sometimes you are, but what we do to try and help us think differently from how we are.
Well, I was just thinking about this, like mom guilt, and one of my first like vivid memories of experiencing like mom guilt to the point of like tears
Mm,
was when Hillam, my first, was a baby, like newborn. And I probably experienced mom guilt before this point, but
mm,
this memory's like, I don't know, it sticks out for some
yeah.
reason. So he's like a baby and we're getting ready to go somewhere. I don't remember. And there was like dirt or dust in his car seat
Mm,
or something. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to like, before I put him in his car seat, I'm going to vacuum out the dirt real quick.
yeah.
And I just had him, I think, like laying on the floor next to
Mm,
the car seat. And, or I don't know, he was just like kind of close to me. And I like start vacuuming and then it like, like makes that suction
yeah.
sound. And it like scared him to death.
Oh.
Like the saddest scream cry I've ever heard. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I just traumatized you with the
Oh
vacuum.
no.
And I was like crying because he was just like had the saddest cry. And I was like holding him. I'm like, it's okay. I'm so
Oh
sorry.
no.
And then so I'm like, okay, I'm done with the vacuum. I put him in the car seat to like buckle him up and get ready to go. And I didn't realize it, but I like had tightened it too tight
Mm.
and
Oh.
the buckle like went up on his neck and was kind of like
Oh.
gagging him. So I just hear like and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like I was like, no, I'm so sorry. Like, and so then I like loosened it that he's crying again and I'm crying again because I'm like,
Oh
I'm
no.
the worst mom. Like I
Oh
scared him with the
no.
vacuum and then I choked him with the car seat. And I was just like, I, yeah. And then I don't know if I can't remember if Austin was like I don't think he was there in that moment, but I was
Mhm.
telling him about it later, or I called him and I was telling him
Yeah.
about it. And I was just like, I'm the worst mom. And he's like, it's fine. Like, it happened, like he's
Yeah.
not hurt. Like, he's okay.
Oh.
Anyways, I just remember that because he was crying. I was crying. I was just like, and
Oh,
it was
baby.
just the timing of it,
Oh,
like,
like you absolutely did nothing wrong, but
yeah.
it's
In the
just like the
moment I
things that
was just
happen.
just the yeah, and it's not like I really could control
No. And it's not
that,
like one
but
specific thing. It's just like all
yeah,
these things that just like
yeah,
it's so hard because it's hard to take care of a tiny human,
yeah,
especially when you're just like when it's just you in that moment. It's just like
yeah.
so overwhelming and it just like
So
it's
that's
rough.
like one of the memories that like when I think of mom guilt, like one of those first
Yeah.
moments of like
Yeah.
feeling so bad, and I've had many moments since then
Oh yeah. Yeah.
in
Oh yeah.
different ways, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You saying that sparked my when I first had Everly and we were like in the trenches of like
Mhm.
newborn sleepless nights and
Mhm.
like our past episodes we've talked about like relationships and like this was a point where Dwayne and I were like kind of just getting after one another for like the
Yeah.
tiniest things. And I
Yeah.
remember there was a morning where he went to work and we were kind of just like nagging on each other and it was like it just wasn't the greatest and I was already feeling upset about it. And then Everly was in her bassinet and like she was a little bit fussy, but I was like, it's okay, like trying to rock her and I like let it be. And she kept crying and I kind of like was trying to just like shush her in there thinking
Yeah.
everything was okay. And I think she did have a protein allergy when she was little. At this point we didn't know. And I thought maybe reflux, but again, we didn't know. And I'm like, okay, it's okay, it's okay. She threw up the biggest amount I have
Oh,
seen with both of my kids at this point.
no.
All over her face, all over the bassinet. Like it was coming out the sides of the bassinet.
Oh my gosh.
I immediately started bawling my eyes
Yeah.
out. I was like, I'm the worst mom. Like, here I am just frustrated because I'm arguing with my husband
You're
and
trying to soothe the baby,
trying to
just
soothe the
like go
baby.
to
And
sleep.
I should have just, like, in my head, I'm like, I should have just picked her up, but I didn't. I'm so terrible. Like, why did I not do that? And she threw up. And I'm just thinking, like, I'm the worst mom
Mm-hmm.
ever. I'm just sobbing. And my mom, I think at this point they had either just moved or they hadn't moved to San Diego yet,
Mm.
and she had just left. I think it was that she had just left, and I was really sad about it. So that like
Yeah.
added, and I just felt
Yeah.
like the worst mom. I can still envision that whole thing, like so much spit up, but it was like throw up. So it was
So
terrible.
sad. But yeah, it's like you didn't know and you're just in the moment trying to
Help.
do the best thing. Yeah. And then in hindsight it's always like in hindsight like, oh well, I should have done this
Yeah,
or whatever, but in the moment you're just doing
yeah.
what you can.
It was terrible. It was terrible. But we got over it, and it's okay. And there was no incidents like that after that. But my gosh, I felt terrible.
Yeah. I've had a lot of moments like that. And I just feel like day to day there's so many things
So
that
many.
come up and just like this pressure of like doing the right thing or
Mm-hmm.
like parenting the right way, like
Yeah.
I don't know,
Which
being
which
enough for your kid, like doing
which can be
enough.
defined so differently person to person,
Uh-huh.
which is why it's so crazy. Because I feel like mom guilt is defined like to you one
Mhm.
way, or
Mhm.
parenthood is defined one way to somebody else, and you're like, well, I don't see it like that,
Yeah.
which is right there not fair for how everybody sees themselves in parenthood.
It's individual, but it's easy to compare yourself to
Exactly.
other people.
Exactly. I mean,
It's a
if we're thinking about
lose-lose.
it, like how would you compare, like how would you define mom guilt if you're thinking about like how like how parenting should be? What would mom guilt be to you then? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like the first thing that comes to mind is like I feel like my child deserves better,
Mm-hmm.
or like I said, I'm not being enough, or I'm
Yeah.
not being the mom my kid deserves, because
Mm-hmm.
like in my mind my kids are perfect, they deserve like the perfect mom, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm never going to be that.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to feel mom guilt because yeah, it's like to me I'm like, oh, like they didn't deserve that, or like they deserve more,
Yeah.
or yeah, not feeling enough, or not
Mm-hmm.
feeling like I made the right decision. So it's a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
That answers.
Yeah. No,
What would you say?
I think I feel the same way. I think that I grew up in a my mom had always said, I'm sorry, I hear my kids.
It's okay. My kids are in the background too.
I
Like
feel
that's part of
bad.
listening to a mom
That's
podcast. I
right.
hope you guys understand.
I hear them. I would say to me that when I was growing up, my mom had always said, like, I want to give you more than I had.
Yeah.
And then, not that she didn't have enough, but
Right,
I feel
right.
like that is just in my head. Like, I want to give you more than what I had.
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to do that for my kids. And so when I'm not doing that, that's when I
Yeah.
feel guilty. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean to say that like idea of guilt is placed on me by like things that have been said. It's more just like I think I see what so many kids around us have and like those families, and sometimes I feel guilty that I'm not at that place.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
want to provide so much and be so present for my kids
Mm-hmm.
that when I feel like I can't, I feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
And that's rough for me. And I think that I'm doing my absolute best, and so is my husband.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that there's just a lot of comparisons that you can make to other people, which is easy to do these days, especially with social media. That puts an unfair comparison.
Yeah.
Um, that's I think that's my biggest hurdle with it, is just seeing like what I would like to be able to provide.
Yeah.
But again, I've said this before, like you're like a superhero to your kids, and that's all that they
Yeah.
see. And so I just have to remind myself that it's just like being with them,
Yeah. They don't need a
showing
lot.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. They just need you, and they
But
don't
that's
need
not
a
always
lot.
something that I can remember in the moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. It's so hard, and it comes up a lot. So,
Yeah. Let's do a question if
okay.
you're. So, have you ever felt guilty about not spending enough time with your kids, and then how do you manage those feelings?
Every single day. I feel guilty about that a lot.
Mhm.
Which is like, I mean, I spend all day with my kids, you
Yeah.
know, um but kind of like what you were saying about wanting to be present with your kids, and I feel like there's a lot of times where I might not be present in the moment, like I'm worrying about other things, thinking about
Yeah.
other things. I'm trying to get things done around the house. I'm trying to get work done, like,
Mhm.
and so I'm not being present in that
Yeah.
moment. And then Hillam's like, Mom, play with me. And I'm like, I want to, you know, but sometimes you can't, or you don't have it in you, you
Mhm.
know, to sit and play all day. Or something I constantly feel guilty about is screen time,
Uh-huh.
because I will be honest, like we use screen time a lot, um and so I it's something I feel guilty about a lot, but
Mhm.
we still do it because sometimes it's the only way that I can, you know, kind of peacefully take care of Hayes
Mhm.
and have Hillam entertained, or yeah, get some work done, or I need to do stuff around the, you know, like,
Exactly.
and so, but I still like every day feel guilty about it.
Same. I feel you're describing my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is part of like not feeling like I spend enough quality
Yeah.
time
Mhm.
with my kids. And like, I don't know. I'm trying to think about like how I manage those feelings. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't really.
Yeah. No, same.
um, I I feel like I should probably like talk about it more, like,
Mhm.
because I know I'm not the only one. Like you just said, yeah, that's totally how I feel too, you know? And so I think talking about it probably helps be like, you're not the only one. A lot of people are in that same boat. But in the moment, I just like, I feel guilty and then I try to move on. Or sometimes I will be like, okay, well, I'm going to try to set aside like maybe later in the day or
Yeah.
tomorrow or when I can, like I'm going to try to set aside some like intentional no screen
Yeah.
one-on-one time or something. And that I do feel like that kind of recharges my
Mhm.
battery, or like I don't know the right way to describe it, but like when I am able to like have those times to connect one
Yeah.
on one with my kids, it's kind of like, oh, okay, like we do have this like
Yeah.
connection, and it doesn't have to be we spend uninterrupted time together 24/7,
Mhm.
but taking advantage of those small moments where you can,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of like refuels me for
Mhm.
like the next while. I
A
don't
lot.
know.
Yeah, no, that
It's
makes
like
sense.
this yo-yo
Yeah.
of like, I don't know.
Well, and you talking about this is making me think too, like, do you ever feel, because I feel sometimes I don't, this makes me feel guilty. I don't always want to play
Yeah,
and do that.
totally.
And sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to. And I feel like I
Yeah.
should
Mm-hmm.
want to. And I'm just tired. And sometimes in those moments, I do like go to my phone when I should be like
Yeah.
playing with my kids. And
Mm-hmm.
that is something I don't like and I feel guilty about. And I think my pull almost to that is like, it's just me at home with the kids
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And so I'm just around a 2-year old and a 4-month old. And
Yeah.
like there's no adult interaction in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go on social media because to me it's almost like I'm not talking to somebody, but it's adult.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm
Totally.
not just with kids all the time. Because I think my brain is going a little bit crazy.
Crazy. Totally. I find myself being on social media more when I want that adult
Yeah,
connection or interaction or just like stimulation or,
exactly.
like,
It's hard
yeah.
because it's hard because it's like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really having conversations. I'm piecing together what my toddler's saying, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'm like babbling at my baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to feel like a human
Mm-hmm.
for once. And so I go to social media and I need to find a different outlet than that. And I think
Yeah.
before I had Riley, Everly and I had been going out. I had made some friends and we were doing things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now after having Riley, I just haven't found that rhythm. And so I find myself on the phone so much more.
Yeah.
And their screen time is a lot more. And I just need to be getting back outside. I think for me, managing some of that is just like going for a walk and
Mhm.
like
Yeah. It's like a
that's how
reset.
yes, exactly. Like
Mhm.
that's how I refuel myself. And I typically like I wait for Dwayne to come home from work and we do like a family walk together. But I think I need to get in that mindset of just like putting the kids in the stroller and going myself.
Mhm.
Um, and being able to do that just on my own. Riley, I think, is about now at a spot where he can be put in the stroller and go. So hopefully we do some more walks. It's just getting it's hot here.
And that made me think too. I was talking to my therapist about this at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was like in my third trimester with Hayes, and I was saying, I'm so tired, I'm so uncomfortable, and Hillam just like watches TV all the time, and I feel so bad about it. And she was one of the things she said is there's I can't remember what she called it, but um like Netflix seasons in our
Mm,
lives where like we are not at our best or
yeah.
like we can't perform at full capacity. I can't remember how she
Hmm.
described it, but like we need sometimes to rely on those resources more and
Yeah.
like and yeah, like you're still in the thick of like newborn and little baby and
Hmm.
like trying to find
Figure it
your
out.
rhythm, like you were
Yeah.
saying. And I feel like the time of life that we're in right now, there's a lot of those Netflix seasons,
Yeah.
right? It's like pregnancy, postpartum,
Yeah.
toddler. Like it's just the season of life
Yeah.
that we're
And I
in.
like we've seen like I don't know if it's like if this for you, but when I hit the 1 year mark with Everly, it was like so many things opened up and
Yeah.
we did so much more and it was
Hmm.
I felt more full like myself like it just like
Yeah.
we were doing enriching things with people and it
Yeah.
was so exciting so in my head I'm like okay I'm excited because I know once Riley hits that mark like it's going to be so fun not just for him but for both of them
Yeah. Yeah.
but she has hit that mark and so
Right.
I feel so
Right.
bad because this is like it's holding her back too and I feel
I
like
feel that.
the
Yeah.
reason for that is me. There's like fears that I have too, and I think that that's probably like a mom guilt thing as well, like germs and all this stuff.
Hmm.
So it's like I worry for Riley.
Yep.
That's not fair for Everly, and then I feel guilty about
It's
Everly.
no, it's
I want to keep
so
him
hard.
safe. So,
It's so hard. Yeah, because you're like, it's not like when you just had one
mhm, and you
baby
could
and yeah, you
chill.
could just stay at home
Mhm.
all the time and you could just revolve your day around their nap schedule. And so it's, yeah, it's so hard when like you're trying to balance all those things of, yeah, keeping your baby safe,
Mhm.
making sure they, yeah, get the sleep and naps that they
And
need. But then also your toddler is like
stuck.
stuck. Yeah. Yeah. It's so hard.
And mind you, we're trying to keep everyone safe, and then my whole family just got COVID.
Yeah.
So I mean, what really is keeping everybody safe?
I know. I know. It's like you can try
It's not
and
gonna
do
work.
all the right things. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I felt too. Like I was trying to be so cautious like after we had Hayes. And how old is Riley? Is he 3 months?
He's about, I think he's really close to the same age that Hayes was when he
I
was
was going to say Hayes was I think he was 3 months when he
he,
got RSV, and I
yeah.
was like, we tried all the things to keep us safe. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like you can do all the right things, and then you're like, is it even worth it? Like
I'm like,
so.
I don't even know. But
Yeah,
he took it like a champ. Kids are
they
resilient,
are resilient. Yeah,
but you do
but
feel bad about it.
it's still hard, and that just is another thing about mom guilt, right? Is
Yeah.
like I feel like a lot of times mom guilt is like it comes from like lose-lose situations,
Yes.
right? Where and there's so many of those in motherhood and stuff where like you okay, if I choose to like go out today, we're going to go out to the park or the museum, then I'm going to feel guilty because when we got there, there was a kid there coughing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we shouldn't have come
Yep.
because there's someone sick here and we're going to get sick. But then it's like, okay, if I would have stayed home in my
Hmm.
safe little cocoon or whatever, then I would have felt guilty that we didn't get out today. So
Yeah.
it's just like a lose lose
Yep.
situation. And like in my mind, whereas like, I mean, really, it's not because there's not like a wrong choice, right? Like if you go out and you get sick, that's okay. And that happens. If you stay home and you don't get out today, that's okay too. But as like a mom, you feel that pressure
To get
and
out.
that guilt no matter
Yeah.
what.
Hmm. I use my parents' house more frequently than I probably should, but I use that as my like excuse to get out. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
we're going out, and they have a play structure and a
Yeah.
bunch of grass and the dogs, and they can run. And to me, I'm like, okay, I get some sun, the kids get out, but
That honestly sounds like a perfect like middle ground to me,
yeah.
like
It is. I just can't. I need to get out. I think it's like I need to build more of my community again because I
yeah.
had that, and I think that since um, having Riley, I haven't been able to get out and do that as
It's
much.
really hard to get back to that.
Exactly, and it hasn't been like it's not like I don't want to go out and do that. I
Mhm.
think it was like the beginning. The doctor had said to, stay away from social things. So like I did, and then I'd start getting back out, but then there was like, okay, I have an appointment on this day where they're going to do something, or I have this, that, the other, and then now I feel guilty because it's like, oh, it seems like I just haven't gone to do anything, but it's like,
Yeah.
no, something has happened every single time, unfortunately. It's just hard. Things like
Yeah.
get in the way, and it's a bummer. If we transition a bit into social media, because I feel like that is a huge part of
Mhm.
mom guilt
A
and why
huge
we feel a
source
certain
of
way.
yeah.
Exactly. And just like, I don't know about you, but after, like, when you're pregnant, my feed turns into all pregnancy related things.
Yep.
And then
Mhm.
it's like my phone knows that the baby has come.
Yeah.
And then it's all newborn.
Newborn. Yep.
And it's not just like fun videos all the time. Like
Mhm.
it's like
Mhm.
some of them are scary. Some of them make you feel really bad about like what you are doing with your kid, and you're like, "Oh, I thought that that was okay, but apparently this person says it's
Yeah.
not." Um, so
There
what are
have
your thoughts?
yeah, no, there have been well, I agree 100%. I think it's hard because social media can be such a great resource, but it can also be a source of, yeah, a lot of guilt and comparison. And there have been times where I've had to take just like a month long break from social media because I'm not in a place where I can receive that
Mhm.
content in a good place. Like there's been times where every time I get on social media, it like triggers
Mm.
mom guilt because I'll see a reel about like they should be having this amount of screen time and no more, or like I'll see something about starting solids with your baby and I'm like, that's not how I did it, or and I'm like, oh shoot, should I have done this, or like it just, or things that I haven't even thought about, and then I'm like, I'll see a reel and be like, well, shoot, there's another thing that I can worry
Yeah.
about, or another thing that I should be doing, add it to the
Yeah.
list of things I'm not doing and I should, or whatever. So there have been times where I'm like, I just can't receive any of
Yeah.
that input right now.
Yeah.
I just need to like something that I don't do well, but I try to remind myself is like turning inwards
Mm.
instead of like, I'm always, when I'm faced with like a decision or like feel like I want to make a change or I need advice, I'll always turn outward to like social media or research of like, what is everyone
Yeah.
else doing? Which is not a bad thing. Like I said, social media it is a good resource.
Yeah.
And it can be a great sense of community and, give you ideas and things like that. But it also,
It's a source of stress.
yeah, it's also like hard once again if you're comparing yourself and everyone's situation is different, and social media you only see like a tiny little bit, like, and I'm totally guilty of that too.
Uh-huh.
So I need to remind myself that other people are in the same boat. Like the other day I posted a story going on a bike ride with my kids.
Yeah.
And you messaged me and you're like, that's so fun. Like, that looks awesome. And I was like, little did you know, and everyone else who saw that story, that the hour prior to that bike ride, Hillam was just not having it. He had been up late the night before and he was just cranky and tired. And I was like, we're going to go for a bike ride and get outside. And he's like, I don't want to go on a bike ride. And, like he's just screaming and fighting everything. He's fighting getting dressed. He's fighting putting sunscreen on. He's fighting eating breakfast, his shoes, like everything is a battle. And he's like, I don't want to. Hayes is like sitting over there crying because I'm trying to deal with getting Hillam ready. And then I got to get Hayes changed and put sunscreen on him. And it's just like, it was at least this hour-long process. And several times I was like, I give up, like there were so many points where I was like, fine, we just won't go on the bike ride and we'll just stay here and we'll watch TV. And like, are you happy? Like, are you happy now? But I was like, I'm just gonna push through it. And we got out on that bike ride, pretty much immediately as we started going, both the boys calmed down and Hillam's like, wee, and like looking at and then, on the way home, it was like, he was like, when are we going to be home? When are we going to be home? So it wasn't like this perfect experience or whatever, but that's just an example of like, it seems like one thing, but behind the scenes, it's another. So it's so hard because we're only seeing
a short bit. And people don't want to show the not fun bits, which is understandable. I mean,
totally. Like I said, I'm guilty of.
You don't want to just sit there and film your kid crying because it's like, why are you filming your kid crying? Like, why aren't you helping them? Also, you obviously like don't want to film that, but it's hard because you just see those good bits. And I also think this is another thing that, and I don't know if this is true per se for all these people, but you see posts about like, oh, when you're on your phone, this is what it looks like that your kid's doing. You see those perspectives, and sometimes I want to be like, okay, but you're filming this, right? And you obviously have like a channel, so like you're on your phone too,
right?
So it's like,
Like, and you want people to look at your content and they have to be
yeah,
on their phone to do
exactly.
that.
Exactly. So I'm like,
Yeah,
sometimes I feel
that's
like,
so true.
and a lot of these pages these days, I feel like are moms trying to work from home. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of social media, like a lot of moms run
Mm-hmm.
social media pages.
Yep.
And it is where you get a lot of information and different
Yeah.
insights and viewpoints and whatever. But there is like they say like fear mongering or
Uh-huh.
like how they make you feel a certain way about things. And it's like, okay, but you're you're out here trying to help people, but it's not helpful when you're like putting views down. I don't know. I think it's hard. It's a hard thing because we're all moms. We're all just trying to make it through.
Yeah.
And it can be rough when it's like, okay, I get that there's one way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or there's like, or that you feel like there's one way, but don't
Yeah.
put down someone else's way of doing it or tell them
Right.
that's bad, because that just makes it so much harder
Right.
on that one person. Like, I've seen videos now that we're like giving Riley bottles, and I was like just looking at how other people do things, and it would be like, you're feeding your child too much. If you're giving them this much, they shouldn't need this, and like you're overfeeding them.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, how do you know? And then you like look at the comments and it's like, my kid took this, like this isn't true. Every baby's different.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's hard to see those because it's like, let's, not every baby is the same. So let's
Oh,
put like
so
that
different.
information out there and make
Mm-hmm.
it feel like one mom is doing something wrong.
Right. Right.
Um, and that's, I think that that's where a lot of my issue comes with it too. And it's like, oh well, we don't do screen time, instead we do this. But it's like, sure, you're not doing screen time, but you are filming your kid right now. Like, you
Yeah.
realize that, right? So like your phone is there, and I know it's
Yes.
different, but
Yeah.
like it's not like, I don't know, it's
But they don't like acknowledge that side of it.
exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you have to be on your phone. Like, we've done some reels for our Instagram, and like
Yeah.
we're still new to it and we're figuring all this stuff out, and
Yes.
it's a fun thing, but it takes time.
A
And
lot of
unless
time.
unless you have
If
somebody
anyone's
like,
wondering.
yeah, it's rough. But unless you have like somebody that you're paying to help you,
Yes, and
and
you
like
have
they're
that
doing
set
it,
aside time. Yeah.
exactly, it takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So like it is hard for me to see some of those things now doing some of this, and it's like,
Yeah.
you have to be spending a lot of time doing this. So it's not, I don't like that comparison where it's like you're doing this and you're not spending time with your kids. Well, maybe you're doing it because you're trying to build a better life for your kids, and this
Yeah.
is your way of figuring
Right.
things out. But let's not put someone down because they're doing it. It's hard. You're
Yes.
juggling kids, you're juggling trying to start something,
Yeah.
and it's just like some of those ideas of videos, it's just like really like it bugs me
Yeah.
because it makes me feel bad about myself.
Right.
And that short
Right.
like 15-second clip where it's like, look at what you're doing right now. Do you see the video of this mom looking at her phone? That's what you're doing.
Yeah. It's hard. And yeah, like you said, like we are new to this like social media thing, and we want our page and our content to be a resource for people. And so we're trying to be really mindful of like of creating relatable content, but
Exactly.
we never want to make people feel like they're not enough, they're not doing enough, or like that our way is the right way,
Yeah.
or like
'Cause
anything
we
like
don't know
that.
what we're doing.
We don't know it. Yeah. We'll be fully transparent. Like,
I don't know what I'm doing most every single day.
yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'll look over and Everly's doing something. I'm like, okay, great. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing with most things.
Yeah.
Um,
None of us have it all together. No,
So
not even a little.
So yeah, it's just, I think that social media should be a resource. It should be a place of community where people come together and share ideas.
Yeah.
And it's hard when it can turn into something that like kind of tears people down.
Totally.
I think there are things that I can learn where I'm like, oh, I
Yes.
didn't know that I was doing that this way and it should be done this way. Great.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I was doing it in a way that was like hurting my baby.
Right.
You know, like it shouldn't be
Right.
something that you should be like feeling so bad about yourself
No.
for. I
there's
think
so
that's
many
super
different
cool.
ways
Yeah.
to parent, and there's not one right way, and that is something that like I obviously didn't understand until becoming a parent. I will admit I was that person before I had kids that's like, I will
Oh,
never give my kid
yep.
my phone.
Uh-huh.
They will not have screen time. I will, like all of these things, like you don't know. And then I'm in it and I'm like, oh, like
Yeah.
F that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like, and I had so much more empathy for people
Yeah.
and just like whatever you need to do to survive, to take care of your family, to, like that is that is up to you. And like, I'm going to respect however you choose
Yeah.
to mother, parent, like,
Exactly.
because it's just different when you're in it. You just do what you have to do.
Exactly.
Like,
It's because it's challenging for every single person, and not everybody has access to the same resources either.
oh,
I think that that's
totally,
another huge thing, and
totally.
because you see some of these like people on social media, anybody on social media, it could be like this very aesthetic, like the
Mm-hmm.
most expensive baby items, and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is what you need. This is like, if you don't have this, and
Yeah.
leads to another bit of it. It's like, well, I can't afford that. Does my baby really need this?
Yeah.
And so again, everybody is so different and we don't all
Mhm.
have the same means to do that. Does that
That's
mean that if
true.
you don't have the most expensive like baby bottle whatever, that
Yeah.
your child is not going to be okay? Absolutely not. No.
No. No.
Like, put your bottle in a pot of boiling water and heat it up for a few minutes and they're
Mhm.
going to be fine.
Right.
You know, like if you're not going to like what bottle feeding Riley, we give him plastic bottles. I don't know if you guys do that with Hayes. I've
Yep.
seen all these things about how we're giving our children microplastics,
Yeah,
and
like you have to
I'm
do
just like,
glass bottles
yes,
and
like
yeah.
you don't know, like
Yeah.
we are all ingesting microplastics every
Like
single day. It's
you said, it's not realistic to have the best
no,
product of everything, or
it's what you are able to give to your kid
yeah.
is enough. Like
Yeah, and
that's all they need.
you can't do all the things. You can't be all the things. You can't have a
No,
perfectly clean house and spend
exactly.
all day playing with your kid and like have an income
Exactly.
and like
It's too much.
like you cannot be all the things.
You
And
can't.
I do think social media kind of makes it seem that way of like, how are they doing all of the things, and
It's not realistic.
it's
I
not.
will say, in a really random and odd way, and mind you, we haven't posted any of these videos because I haven't had the time to put them together. But sometimes setting up my camera and like just trying to do a time lapse video of me cleaning
Yeah.
almost like makes me want to clean more. So I
Oh,
do wonder if some of these like people who are filming these things, it's a little bit of a motivation because it's like I have to get some
totally.
content so you're able to do it and it helps. So to a point, I can see that because it
That's
has
actually
motivated me.
that's a really good point. I Nothing is more motivating to me than a time lapse for cleaning.
I'm like, I'm gonna film this and I can do
Yeah.
this and it helps. So
Yeah.
like sometimes when
Or
people
yeah, like
post those, I get it.
filming you like preparing your
A meal.
kid's
Yeah,
meal or something.
it helps. So
That's
I
true.
do get that to some
Yeah.
extent. I do get that, which is kind of funny how that
Yeah.
works.
Totally.
Um,
And I'm not trying to like bash on influencers or anyone who
no, no,
posts
no.
content like this. Like I just think we can
We just need
still,
to give each other grace
yeah, and we
for
can
where
still
we're all at.
consume that content and enjoy it, but just remember that that's not everything. You're not seeing everything. Give,
Yeah,
like you said, give yourself grace. Just like,
and we should all be on the same team.
yeah,
Like we're all moms.
exactly.
We're all on the same team. We
Exactly.
all have the same goal to make sure
Yes.
that our kids are happy and healthy.
Yes.
And that's all.
Yeah, we're all, like you said, we're all on the same team. I love that. Like, what is what are some ways that like you've learned or that you can think of to be more compassionate with yourself
Oh,
and give yourself that grace? Because it's hard, you know, it's like one thing to say like give yourself grace and it's okay, but like in the moment it's hard. I don't know.
I
Can you think
don't
of
know.
ways?
I don't even know if I have fully
Yeah.
I think that I still feel pretty guilty. I think that this is probably going to sound bad. One, having a good community around you that like builds
Yeah.
you up, I think that that's probably the main thing. If I were
Yeah.
to think of something, like people who are telling, like, that just remind you that you're doing a good job, I think that
Mhm.
that kind of like makes me feel better and refuels me.
Yeah, and like we've been there,
Yes,
like yeah.
yes, like we know what you're going through. I was gonna say, like, the bad part is, the other part I think is that I'm just too exhausted sometimes to even care.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so tired that it's just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I can't like dwell on this.
Right, right.
I'm like too
I
exhausted.
can't, I don't
Like,
have the energy to beat myself up about this for too
yeah,
long. Yeah.
yeah. Cause I mean, or I'll just cry, a good cry, and then
Yeah.
I feel better about it. I mean, sometimes a good cry just helps.
That's so
Get in the
true.
shower, cry. You know,
You
feel
know,
refueled.
I this is like so funny and like silly, but uh, I haven't been crying a lot because I don't know if this is why, but I attribute it to my antidepressant.
Well, that's good.
Which is good. Like I
That's
need
good.
it to function, but
Yeah.
also like I do think I I don't have that ability as much to just like have a good meltdown and a good cry. And sometimes I think that that would
Help.
help. Yeah. So, you know, pros
Oh,
and cons.
pros and cons. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting on something at some point too. So
Yeah. It's
sometimes
just
the
funny, but
cries can be too much, you know.
I do think that is so true. It's like a physical release
It
of your
is. Yeah.
emotions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Therapy
Yep.
is super helpful because they can kind of like point out the stories that you're telling yourself that aren't necessarily true and like give you perspective that's
Yeah.
like unbiased and like you know actually there's a lot of people who are feeling this way and so I think that's another thing that's really helped me
Yeah.
is talking to my therapist and she'll bring up really good points where I'm like oh yeah I never considered that.
I love it.
Sometimes you just need an outside perspective to like take you out of your own brain,
Yeah.
you know? Like
Someone
you were
that's
saying, even with like a community of friends or something.
exactly someone that's not you can friends, but sometimes, like you're saying, a therapist, not family, not friends,
Mm-hmm.
not your husband or wife, whoever,
Yeah.
just someone else. I'm
Someone that's like
working
safe.
exactly. I'm
Yeah.
working on the therapist thing right now. Have to.
It that's a whole other thing that we could get
Oh,
into.
I'm sure.
It's really hard to find a good therapist. I'm just gonna say.
I'm literally trying to contact my therapist from high school, and I have to call
Yeah.
her, but because she was really good, and that's the only
Yeah.
person that I think I trust.
Yeah.
So,
It's really hard. So
but
yeah.
I won't be able to
Anyways.
go in person because she's in Oregon. So,
Yeah.
oh well. But still, yeah, therapist is that's hard.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to new moms struggling with guilt?
Mm, that's good. To not compare yourself, because everybody's story is different, but knowing how they're feeling. Like you can, you don't know exactly how they're feeling, but just knowing that, like, when you're in that, it's hard to tell yourself that. So
Yeah.
just not comparing yourself, but like knowing that it's still going to be hard, and just know that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
it's
don't
okay
know.
that it's hard
Yeah.
in that moment. You know, like it's okay to feel all the things
Yeah.
and yeah.
And it's not going to be the first time or the last time that you're feeling guilty. Like,
Mhm.
I guess it could be the first, but it's not going to be the last time that
Yeah.
you feel guilty. Like what, Riley took a tumble the other day. That's kid number 2, and I felt guilty, but I know that that's not the last time that he's going to do something or that I
Mm-hmm.
do something in that situation. So, like, it's just kind of a never-ending cycle. I think it's more of how you learn to deal with it,
Yeah,
and that is the harder part.
for sure. For sure. Austin always reminds me of that when like something happens. Yeah, like one of the kids gets hurt or and I'm like, "Oh, I should have like reacted quicker. I should
Yeah.
have caught him or I should have done this." And he's like, "They're kids. Like you can't always be right there to catch them or like they're going to have to fall
Yeah.
and he always says that's not going to be the last time that one of our kids gets hurt
Yeah.
or and that's just part of life. It's part of motherhood. It doesn't make it less sad or hard, but yeah, it's okay. It's a part of the journey,
It
the
is.
experience
I mean, we
and
took we took tumbles when we were
yeah.
kids. I'm sure that so many things happened, and that
Yeah.
thinking as a mom now, your mom was probably just like, "Oh my gosh," and we were fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it is funny. My mom will share with me because we're living with my mom. And so things will happen with the kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel so bad about it. And she'll be
Yeah.
like, there was this one time when, when you fell off the couch and I felt so bad about it. And my sister was just laughing at me because she had, like 4 kids and she's like, yeah, that's just how it goes, So like being able to like, I think laugh
Yeah.
together or just like share those
Yeah.
experiences helps.
Yeah. Especially when it's like if something happens and everything's okay,
Mm-hmm.
which 90% of the I'd say I'll leave like 95. I'll leave 5% for error.
Yeah
95% of the time everything is fine. And
yeah
so to find the like maybe say like humor in it afterwards and be
mm-hmm.
like, okay, that's a story that we'll look back on and we'll probably laugh about. I mean, like,
Right.
I still feel bad about the Everly throwing up in her bassinet, but
Yeah.
if I look back on it, I'm like, that
Yeah.
wasn't that bad.
Totally
In the moment, it felt really bad.
exactly
Yeah.
in the moment it's like end of the world.
Yeah. No, there's
But
been like, there's falls and
mm-hmm.
cuts and scrapes and all these things. And you just kind of look back on it and you're like, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, totally.
But you get through it and then you have stories and you can share. And that's what life is built up on, right?
Yeah.
Stories to look back on.
Yeah, exactly. And just like as we wrap up, I just want to tell everyone who's listening, you're doing an amazing job and you're doing the best you can. You're the best mom, dad, parent, whoever for your kid, and they love you and you're doing a great job.
Oh, that was very nice. Made me feel good.
I just want you to know.
Oh, it's very true. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.